Welcome, team players and NFL fans across the world. In today's episode, we are going to cover the 2022 Atlanta Falcons in a condensed 15-minute format. Enjoy. Welcome to Local Football Flavor, connecting the fan bases of the NFL.
The season that was for the Atlanta Falcons, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right, team players. So we understand that most of you out there have not followed the Atlanta Falcons, and quite frankly, for probably good reasons. They weren't even the best team in their state. How about those dogs?
I mean, when you're comparing, and now here's the thing about Atlanta is that I I actually think that Atlanta could beat Georgia because they're
Yes.
professional athletes, right? But it is getting more and more clear that the highest level of college football is becoming like professional athletes anyway. They're getting paid now. It's becoming something that I'm not very certain and how confident I am. If I were to give Atlanta 100 games, that they would win over 50% of those games against the Georgia Bulldogs. I am not 100% certain that that would happen based off of what we've seen this year from the Atlanta Falcons. And one of the most damaging things for the Atlanta Falcons this year has been the way that they throw the ball and the way that they protect against the pass. They are one of the worst teams against the pass. They are one of the worst teams passing as well. I mean, for most of the season, they had Marcus Mariota under center. And for Marcus Mariota, he is not your traditional passer. He is a run first kind of thinking quarterback, and he'll pass it to where he needs to, but he doesn't throw a good deep ball as well. So their average over the course of the season was 158.8 yards, which ranks 31st in the league. Now, I don't expect Marcus Mariota to be throwing the ball a lot in the game. I don't trust him as a quarterback. But when we look at their potential as they headed into the end of the season, and they basically said, Marcus Mariota, we don't want you anymore. We're not in it with you anymore. We are transitioning over to Desmond Ridder. Now, what Ridder did during the end of that season is provide us with a lens to look at the Atlanta Falcons in the future. So Ridder offers them some downfield presence to balance out their very, 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 very run heavy for a good reason game plan. Tyler Allgeier accumulated 1,035 yards total rushing over the course of the season, and he didn't even start every single game. Cordarrelle Patterson, I believe, accumulated like 675 yards rushing, and he got hurt halfway through the season or a quarter of the way through the season. They were so good as a rushing team that they leaned into it, as a lot of teams that are really good at rushing did this year. Example, the Tennessee Titans. When you have a quarterback that does not have the ability to move the ball in the way that Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers do, and even the average quarterbacks like Carr, where they didn't have that happen, they leaned into the run, and it made them a very one-dimensional team as the season continued. Now, when the game script was positive for Atlanta and they held the lead, or they were in a back-and-forth match where neither team could get anything going, that favored Atlanta very heavily. However, when push came to shove, their defense was awful. They gave no pressure to opponents' quarterbacks. They let quarterbacks sit in the pocket. They were terrible at tackling. They were terrible at coverage. They were constantly out of position on coverage. They were the worst against the run. They were terrible against the pass, and they gave up a tremendous amount of total yards. It is not a game plan that is built for a team that wants to run the ball as heavy as Atlanta did. We're going to see if Desmond Ridder changes that, or if they go out and they get Aaron Rodgers. Any way you slice it, they need a quarterback that can move the ball down the field, because they will not win games if they continue if they won't win as many games if they continue to just rely on the run and still continue to have a terrible presence on defense.
Yeah,
It's not possible.
so to answer that, let's get into the schematics of why that defense was horrible. That defense was not horrible because of personnel per se. It was a designed flaw. They ran essentially a no pressure prevent defense starting from the first play of the game. They let every single game they were in, the first 7 yards from the line of scrimmage, be uncovered. Every single first and second down. The only time this defense really got off the field was if the offense did a mistake and had a 1st and 20 due to a holding penalty. Because you can't throw downfield. There's just 7 defenders down there. You can't throw into it. But if you have a quarterback with any degree of patience playing the Atlanta Falcons, you check down, take the 5 yards, probably break a tackle because it's one of the worst tackling defense in the NFL, especially its right side, and you just get the first downs. And this is why when you look at Atlanta's defense, statistically, one of the absolute worst on third down conversions because they were letting up so many third and shorts. And when we look at the schematics of the offense, what worked, while Allgeier did have some success running behind the guards, almost every single successful play that Atlanta had, especially their chunk runs, were coming off the outside of the tackles. And when they were pushing that gap, they were getting really well. As you highlighted, Bob, the worst part of this Atlanta team to watch is their dropbacks passing game. First off, Mariota can't put the ball downfield to a great downfield receiver in Pitts. But the bottom line was they weren't able to block for him either. And Mariota started developing happy feet. And until they get someone who can stretch the defense over to the top, you're just going to keep crashing in to stop Allgeier.
Well,
This is the problem.
Yeah, the issue essentially with this team is that it feels, and I could be immensely wrong about this, but from watching their games this year and from taking a small sample size from both the beginning of the year and the middle and end of the year, they have built their team for run blocking.
Yes.
And so the guys that they've acquired are proficient at run blocking. And now when you look at what they've done, it's not a good combination when you are not coming off the field on defense and teams are allowed to control the ball against you very well. And they don't have to score right away because they know they can score at any time that they really want, is that you can't continue to go into next season saying to yourself, okay, we are going to give you the 7 yards, 7 yards, 7 yards, 7 yards. But we're not like the Tennessee Titans where we're going to not break at the end. You're going to break, and it's going to be, they're going to break really easily. And so if you want to run and you have a run-heavy team, you have to acknowledge that in your defense, and you have to at least give your run-heavy team the time of possession and the clock. Well, how do you do that? You do that.
You run the ball on first down.
You do that by running the ball on first down, but you also need to develop an intermediate passing game. Now, that's where Desmond Ritter comes in better than Marcus Mariota.
Yes.
Now, Marcus Mariota has happy feet. I'm not saying Desmond Ritter is the answer for the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm saying that they should go out there and get another alternate quarterback, someone who I don't think they should break the bank and go and get Aaron Rodgers, but I think they should get a competent quarterback that can move the ball to help Desmond Ritter, because if they want Desmond Ritter, that's fine, that's cool. But the guy that is almost irrelevant 75% of the season, 80% of the games, is your most talented player in Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, because he doesn't throw the ball downfield. Mariota was the biggest problem to that team, holding Pitts back.
Yeah. And the question is, how do you use Kyle Pitts? Are you using him as an inline pass catcher who also has the potential to block? Are you bringing him outside? What are the percentages when you go? Because they're a professional team. I mean, they don't need two guys sitting here telling them what to do. But from what we're seeing, is that this professional team doesn't know how to use professional athletes appropriately. And we were talking about the Atlanta Falcons early in the season, and we were saying, oh, they've got a good run game. This is
They do.
good. They
That
can
they
control the
do.
ball. They can control the ball, but if they're put into a position from their defense where it's not possible to run the ball anymore because they're so far out of the game, say it's 17-0.
Mm-hmm.
Example, that Baltimore game. They were garbage against Baltimore late in the season. I think the end score was like 17-9. You can't keep running the ball when you're losing.
Yeah, so Atlanta has a very interesting thing here. First off, almost every single game as it went on, they had less and less faith in Mariota. That part was apparent by the way they were calling their plays.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they ran the ball on first down, they were one of the most efficient offenses in the league. But when Mariota threw the ball on first down, they became the contrary. They
Mm-hmm.
killed more drives and created more field goals on themselves by not giving Patterson or Allgeier the ball and letting Mariota throw. Now, obviously, you cannot run the ball every single first down. I'm not trying to say that. What I'm saying was the results were when they let Mariota go, he was more than half ending the drive when they passed on first down. That's a stat, and that's a fact. So, how do you balance that out? You address that as a concern item moving forward. And when I look at the
Well, he's
Atlanta
not going to be on
Falcons,
the team next year.
exactly. When I look at the Atlanta Falcons, if this group, this core of young players they have, matures, I see the comp that they could become is a heavier run version of the Minnesota Vikings. They are going to have absolutely no defense when it matters, but if you give them a competent quarterback, slightly better pass blocking, you have a stud receiver that they call a tight end, and you have a very good possession player in London that you can build around. And that's what Minnesota essentially has. A very good possession guy in Hawk, a very good receiver in JJF, and a very good running game. Atlanta would be a heavier running version of that, but both those defenses are absolutely trash. And if I
Oh, yeah.
were an Atlanta fan sitting here for the hope of how this team could turn it around, that's the team that I'm looking for and saying we can be like them. We
Yeah.
can be a 14-3 team.
Yeah, when you think about the hope there, when you want to run the ball, you are perfectly capable of running the ball if you have the player personnel to do that, and Atlanta does. And the only problem with the Atlanta Falcons that I see moving forward, I think that Desmond Ridder could get there. I think that he can. The problem that I have with the Atlanta Falcons in general is that defense. Watching those games is I can't even. I mean, we've watched a lot of football this year. This defense just has to be the worst defense that I've seen play because even if they have the lead is never safe because this team could not stop the run, could not stop the pass for the exact reasons that you said. They're playing a scheme that is designed to give up a bunch of yards, but then when it push comes to shove, they can get beat over the top, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very easy to do that. I mean, you look at the game where they played against Seattle, and you look at how efficient Geno Smith was. Granted, they did win, the Atlanta Falcons won that game, but Geno Smith threw away the ball at the end of the game with an interception. And I believe that the Atlanta Falcons all year had 6 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
6. And you say, "Oh, well that's indicative of a team who then they're not passing they're you know, they're a run stopping team. They're better at the run." I think they had 4 or something
No,
like
people were able to
fumbles or
run over
something.
Atlanta all year.
Like their offense is like middle of the pack. When it comes to running, right? But it's bad in terms of passing. So there is no balance on the Atlanta Falcons at all. And I think as we look towards the future of the Atlanta Falcons, the player you have to figure out, and it's very necessary because Allgeier is on a rookie contract, Desmond Ritter's on a rookie contract,
Mm-hmm.
and Drake London's on a rookie contract. You have to figure out 2 things on offense. Number 1, are you going to use Kyle Pitts or are you going to trade him?
Yeah.
That's number 1. Number 2, if you keep Kyle Pitts and you keep Drake London, are you going to get a wide receiver to complement the two of them? Because you cannot continue running an offense with Zacchaeus and these other guys who they are role players. They are not guys that you are going to trust every single down of a game. You have to either work them hard so they can get to that point, or you have to go out there and get a number two. Those are the things they have to figure out on offense, and they need to do so quickly because Cordarrelle Patterson's contract, I believe, is coming up either this year or next year, and they're not going to have him. So if Allgeier goes down, it's next man up, whoever that might be. I'm not 100% sure who it is. But the Falcons are in a bad situation if Allgeier goes down, Cordarrelle Patterson's not there, and they can't figure out what to do with Kyle Pitts and Drake London. It sucks.
And we will cover more of the Atlanta Falcons in our draft show for Atlanta for identifying their most individual needs, positions, and their greatest strengths, even though there are a few being a Falcon fan. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Right here, you get other information that we have on local football flavor from the NFC South and our NFC South playlist. And over here, you'll see the next show in our series, the 2022 Pittsburgh Steelers. Lots of interesting stuff happens there. Like, well, you'll have to watch to see.